Good afternoon, folks. Is the mic on? All right, that's good. I'd like to call this meeting to order. This is a meeting that, according to the Residents Association bylaws, is the annual meeting. It's held every year on the third Monday of October. One of the purposes of this meeting is to elect officers and directors. I'm really glad to see so many people here, and particularly knowing that there are people who may be watching on 1390. I think we have a good crowd. Because we will be using 1390, all of the action will be here at the podium so that the camera can follow us. The first order of business, as you see, is the approval of minutes. The last meeting of the whole resident association was in June, and it is the minutes of that meeting that have been posted in Connections and are on the RA web. They are up for approval today. Are there any corrections to those minutes? Hearing none and seeing no hands, the minutes are approved. And I want to thank our secretary, who's seated over at the side, Carolyn Cohn-Weaver, who will be taking the minutes for this meeting. But now I'd like to ask for a minute of your time. It's a minute to help me with some research on communication for the Residents Association. What I would like to do is to ask everybody except Carolyn and Mike Bracey, the vice president, to close their eyes when I ask a question. And when I ask the question, and your answer is yes, I'd like you to raise your hand. So now, we set. Everyone, except Carolyn and Mike, close their eyes. The question is, have you read, even speed read, the minutes of the June meeting? All who answer yes, please raise their hand. Thank you. That was quickie research, but I appreciate your participation. For those of you on 1390, if you want to participate in the research, please just drop a little note saying yes in mailbox 77, and your yes will be counted. Thank you. Now, on to the treasurer's report. As you see on the agenda, Mike Bracey is standing in for Ken Barrett, who is off in Japan.
Okay, all I need to do is find out where it is. Oh, there it is. Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. This is familiar to most of you, really quite simple. The RA Association has only two sources of income, dues and the sales of the pictorial directory. And as you see the expenses, one thing to note as we move down is printing for the Forester newsletter has, the cost has increased because we've introduced color. As you go further down, you'll see a fairly unusually high expense, website expense. We had a lot of problems and tried to fix them this year. That's the end of the operating expenses. That as a total would produce an operating deficit The website improvement project is, we consider that below the line, and I'm sure that'll be discussed later. We are under Lowell Goldsmith's oversight, hoping to completely redo the website. That means that we started the year with $15,000. We ended the year with $12,000. And that's about all that there is to say. But, yeah. Oh, all right. Website improvement project ongoing, and this is important. Ken spends a great deal of time and energy on the Employee Appreciation Fund. I think it's as important as it's ever been. You'll be seeing the announcements and the solicitations in November. Obviously, we have a great need to show our employees that they're appreciated and that they should stay here. The RA dues and pictorial directory solicitation will be postponed until we are able to determine the final addresses for those moving into the new health center. All right, I think that's it.
Are there any questions? Okay, thanks, Mike.
Yes, Roger.
The second item on the printing said the Forester newsletter. Is that the Forester or is that the Forest Forward?
No, it's Forester. Forest Forward is a TFAD publication.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everyone hear that? The Forester is an RA publication paid for by the RA. Forest Forward, the weekly, is the administration. Okay, then if there are no further questions, the treasurer's report will be filed. As usual, we are fortunate to have someone from the administration give us an update. Today, Sharon Pitt, who is Director of Operations and COO, is with us, and I invite Sharon.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's good to see everybody. So I have 3 topics to discuss today. 1, the upcoming resident and team member surveys. 2, an update on the status of board member nominations. And 3, to follow up on the approved resident recommended capital expenditures for this coming year. So first I'll talk about the surveys. We'll be working with a new company called We Care Connect for our future surveys, and we're very excited about what they have to offer. What is new and different about We Care Connect is that they use multiple communication methods. Surveys are sent via email, text, phone, and a mobile app. After 7 days, if no response, residents will receive a phone call from a live phone agent, so not an automated type of operator, but an actual live person that you can speak with. The surveys allow for consistent, fully documented, and unbiased customer and employee feedback. They're conducted throughout the year and at key milestone events of a resident's and employee's experience. The feedback is received in real time, alerting us immediately to any issues and allowing us to directly intervene and ensure that all issues are addressed quickly and appropriately, helping to prevent the further escalation of concerns. Once the data is collected, We Care Connect creates a dashboard that will provide an insight on the health of our residents and team members. The first resident survey is scheduled before the end of the year. I don't have a definitive date yet, but we do know that it will happen before December 31st. And the first team member survey is actually scheduled for early 2023. We're thinking January, but again, no definitive date. For residents, the milestone events are, for new residents, it's 2 weeks after move-in, 45 days after move-in, and then on their anniversary date. All residents are surveyed annually based on their move-in date, and we will also survey a resident when they move out. The flow of information is that a resident completes the survey. Management receives an email with the concern. Management connects with the resident. They follow up on the problem, and the outcome is actually documented in WeCare Connect. All the information is available on the WeCare Connect dashboard. For staff, the milestone events are new team members are surveyed at 2 weeks after employment, 45 days after, 75 days, and then 6 months from hire. And then all employees, like residents, are surveyed annually based on their hire date. And then we also survey them after termination and 21 days after we receive a resignation. It's been quite some time since we've been able to gather this kind of information, and we look forward to having it accessible to help us improve resident and team member satisfaction. Next, the Board of Directors have conducted all of their interviews with the nominees presented from the RA Board. They will make a recommendation by the end of the month, so thank you so much for your incredible nominations and making the decision quite hard for the Board. Lastly, the suggestions provided by the RA Board regarding capital expenditures this year included enhancements in the party room and the auditorium. The technology advancements in the auditorium will include a new stage, audio systems, mics, and improved ease of use. In the party room, we are evaluating audio systems and technology improvements that will, like the auditorium, allow full and easy use of technology. We recognize that these spaces have been extremely challenging and frustrating for residents. However, I want to assure you that we're actively exploring options with vendors that will incorporate a full redesign and technology upgrade in these spaces. We're also reaching out to other communities across North Carolina to gauge their experience and level of satisfaction with the vendors that they're using. That said, we're doing our due diligence in vetting the vendors and ensuring that the solution is indeed a solution, one that we can all be proud of and happy with the results. So we ask that you bear with us for just a little bit longer. So thank you for your time.
Next, according to the agenda, is a report from NORCRA, the NORCRA representative, Carol McFadden, and she'll explain what NORCRA means.
Good afternoon. I'm here to talk about NORCRA, the North Carolina Continuing Care Residents Association. NORCRA, as the name implies, represents residents at the Forest, which is a continuing care residence, and residents from other nonprofit continuing care facilities in North Carolina. Margaret Keller and I are the co-representatives from the Forest. Why do we need representation? There are multiple reasons. NORCRA is your advocate at the state and national level for strong laws and general practices that protect the well-being of CCRC residents. When we sign our contract with the Forest, we buy an insurance product, and like all insurance products in North Carolina, there is a law that governs the terms of what we're buying and how it is delivered. The statute currently requires a disclosure statement be made available annually to residents and prospective residents. Financial reserves must be maintained. The owning entity may not sell or transfer ownership without state approval. And residents have a right to organize and be kept appraised of operations. The 30-year-old law is in the process of being updated to meet the needs of modern CCRCs and their residents while maintaining the protections that we now have. NORCRA members are on the task force doing that work. Over the last 6 years, NORCRA has successfully lobbied at the state and national level for a permanent medical expense deduction. We participated in a successful campaign urging CMS not to impose a bed tax on skilled nursing facilities, and we continue to work with Leading Age to limit the amount of sales tax on residents' monthly service fees. NORCRA representatives share best practices to increase the safety and life quality of CCR residents. A Google group for reps makes that easy to ask how other CCRCs handle various issues and to provide new ideas and solutions. Our Friends program, which originated in Carroll Woods and is now on hiatus because of COVID, provided a forest friend for residents going to the emergency room without their family. Getting Ducks in a Row came from Carolina Meadows, and a new program based on another Carolina Meadows idea is in early planning stages here. NORCRA provides 2 annual forums for the exchange of ideas and concerns and trends in the field of aging. Our latest was the October 4th annual meeting, attended through Zoom. We all benefit from this association. You need NORCRA, and NORCRA really needs you. Your membership speaks loudly to the Department of Insurance and to our legislators in Raleigh. The Forest has a history of strong membership. Please fill out the NORCRA form that you received in your in-house mailbox today and return it to the basket at the front desk. Join us. Your support matters. Thank you.
For the President's report, I had planned to mention 3 topics. The first topic has been made very easy by what Sharon Pitt spoke about, and that is about some capital expenditures that are in this year's budget. A brief history of that. Back earlier in the year, Anita Holt invited the RA to make suggestions about items to be included in the capital budget. The RA went to work, or specifically the committees went to work, and sought suggestions from residents about what capital expenditure items, small equipment, technology, would be on our most wanted list. We put together a report based on those suggestions and submitted it to the administration. That's how far we were in June, and I mentioned it to you at that point. The invitation from Anita came with no promise that anything we suggested would be included. And what you've heard is that the administration is making good progress on planning for some major changes that will be of benefit, particularly in the party room and here in the auditorium. Let me then just say that the RA wants to thank the administration for the opportunity to be involved in an organized approach to provide suggestions to feed into the budget. And thanks to all of you who participated in the process of making suggestions. Sharon asked that we bear with her while this work is done. And I think we can promise that we see real things ahead, and we will indeed bear with her as they work it out. For my second topic, I would like to bring to your attention some changes on the RA's board of directors. Item number 1 is that last month, Jerry Lazarus resigned for personal reasons as director and chair of the Health Committee. He had led the committee for a year and did much to develop within the Health Committee an understanding of the complexity of operating a health center. Subsequently, Judy Vick, a member of the Health Committee, was approved by the RA Board to fill out the unexpired 2-year term. Judy chaired the committee meeting last week, and I can say she's up and running. Item 2 is that Jean Vale has resigned for personal reason as director and chair of the Resident Services Committee. Jean had served in that capacity for 5 years, facilitating and reporting on behalf of the evolving set of teams and volunteer groups that enhance our life here at the Forest. The search for someone to fill out the remaining 1-year term is ongoing. Please, if you would, join me in thanking Jerry and Jean and wishing Judy well in her role. My final point is that once a year, the RA asks residents to express their preference for joining one or more of the standing committees. Typically, this is for a 3-year term. The preferences expressed are tabulated and shared with the committee chairs, who then select the committee members, usually a mix of new and continuing members, for the RA year that begins November the 1st. These preference forms were put in each resident's mailbox on October the 7th. Just in case you might have lost yours, I put a few more at the front desk this morning. The last date to submit forms is this coming Friday, October 21st. And I really encourage you to use the forms, take a look at the description of the committees, and see where you might make a contribution. Now I'd like to turn to the reports of the standing committees. If you take a quick look, you will see that several of the committee chairs are not with us. They have provided their reports, and Mike Bracey and I will fill in by presenting their reports. We will work a little bit out of order today so that we end up with the governance committee, but start off with activities and Elizabeth Gillis, and then they'll move right along.
Good afternoon. Yes. I am chair of the Activities Committee. The purpose of the Activities Committee is to work with the staff of community life at the Forest at Duke to help plan monthly activities. We currently have 5 active resident-led subcommittees: Laughter Crafters, Celebrations, Forest Film Festival, Forest Readers, and Mix and Mingle. The Activities Committee met 2 times within this past reporting period, on September 14 and October 12. In addition to reviewing the reports from their active subcommittees, Sarah Haney and Kelsey Fry gave updates on the OLLI TFAD program and other staff-initiated events and activities. The subcommittees have been very active in continuing to work to provide and suggest interesting and fun ideas of a variety of activities for our residents. Some highlights of activities over the past few months are the Watermelon Day, the Labor Day music event, the appearance of comedian Tim Walco, and the first large Mix and Mingle event held in the auditorium. Many other fun activities are planned for the upcoming months. Carol Goldsmith reported that the Forest Film Festival will come to an end in October due to undependable technical issues with Spectrum and Touchtown. Sarah Haney supports Carol's frustration, as we've all talked about, and acknowledges that the forest is pursuing technology improvements. Melissa Cusick, Community Wellness Manager, has introduced many new programs as well as continuing many of the previous activities. We want to thank Sarah Haney, Kelsey Fry, Michelle Berger, and Melissa Cusick for their continued help and support in making the Forest at Duke a great place to live. Thank you.
Jim Friedman is out of town, so I'm presenting his report for the Caucus Committee. The Caucus Committee took a sabbatical for the months of July and August. Activity was restarted in September. The main speaker for the meeting was Sharon Pitt. Sharon gave an introduction of the key topics that were to be presented to the resident community at the executive update scheduled the following week. In addition, that's Jim, was able to announce that all caucuses now had a leader, with the addition of Art Ellis and Harold Erickson. The October meeting of the Caucus Committee was held this past week. The keynote speaker was Rashad Wilson, Director of Information Systems. Rashad reviewed his background and the IS group responsibilities. Detailed are provided in the minutes, which will be posted shortly in the Connections Room and on the RA website. Here are the key takeaway points. Resident assistance is available for many technical problems at a charge of $50 an hour. There is a once-a-month tech hour, free of charge, every second Thursday of the month between 2 and 2:30 in the living room. These sessions address questions on phones, tablets, and computers. Phase 1 of the fiber installation campus-wide is complete. Phase 2 is scheduled to commence shortly. However, the new network will not be available to residents until mid-2024, when our current contract with Spectrum expires. The new health and wellness is leading the way in introducing beneficial electronics. A commercial artificial intelligence software system is being evaluated, and it is intended to alert staff to a patient's need without a patient's active signal. Vibrant is going to be replaced in the near future because of interface and reliability issues. Finally, Karen Pitt gave a brief executive update. Key issues as we move forward continue to be hiring and keeping qualified staff. Now, I'll change hats or turn around or something, and I will present the Dining Services Committee report. If Bennett Galif were here, he would have presented, but he too is traveling. This is Bennett's words. First, my apologies for not being here with you this afternoon. Today would have been my last appearance as chair of the Residents Association Dining Services Committee, and I'm sorry to miss the meeting. My thanks to Carol for speaking to you on my behalf. The Dining Services Committee serves as a liaison between Forest residents and dining services staff, working to provide healthy, nutritious, and pleasant dining experiences for us all. The committee's main focus during my 3 years as committee chair has been to provide sufficient dining options so that at any meal there will be something appealing for everyone. I believe that over the past 3 years we have made considerable progress in moving toward that goal. Your Dining Services Committee has also worked on behalf of residents to introduce innumerable small changes. Obvious things like the espresso machine and new microwave in Heartwood, the breakfast table in Greenwoods, and more subtle things like placing weekly menus in your mailboxes, the indication of low-salt, low-calorie, low-fat alternatives on those menus, the use of high contrast in video monitors, all to make life easier for the visually challenged. Many, many small things. So, Bennett's closing words. Please keep your suggestions coming to the Dining Services Committee members so that they can continue to improve the dining experience here at the Forest.
Richard Ellman couldn't be here today. The last meeting of the Finance Committee was in September. The October meeting will be this Friday. I went over with Richard my proposed abbreviation of the committee of the minutes. The minutes will be posted soon. I recommend that you read them. They're full of very good information. The topic for the September 8th meeting is the 2023 TFAD budget. I'd like to note that the meeting, which was held in the library conference room, was a hybrid meeting, Zoom and in person, and that part went very well. Karen Henry, who normally presents, was unable to talk that day, so Anita stood in for her and made the presentation with Karen looking on the Zoom camera. The budget process was described in length. All department directors looked at line item details and determined their expectations for the new year, including staffing increases. They did not simply apply a percentage increase to last year's total. Their submissions were reviewed and challenged by top managers. The budget assumes that the health center, which currently has average occupancy of about 60%, will reach approximately 90%. Independent living is assumed to continue at close to 100%. The result of this process is that 2023 operating expenses are 4.5% higher than 2022. This obviously exactly matches the announced 4.5% increase in monthly fees. Capital expenditures of $2.5 million include, as Carol suggested, 3 projects which were priority suggestions of the RA. Now, Richard added a personal note to the bottom of the minutes, and I'd like to read it. Despite the usual skepticism that financial people generally have at reviewing someone else's statements, I walked away from the meeting feeling good about what we saw and heard. Anita, Sharon, and Karen, along with the department directors, appear to have done a thorough, diligent, and comprehensive job in preparing the budget. We, that is the committee, challenged Anita at many points during the meeting, and she was able to defend everything in the budget. Kudos to the entire Forest at Duke team. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Maureen Johnson, and I'm chair of the General Services Committee. And General Services includes housekeeping, maintenance of both buildings and grounds, safety and security, and transportation. How many of you have dogs? I really miss having a dog. How many of you sometimes forget to clean up after your dogs? No hands, no hands. But please consider that even those of us who love dogs don't enjoy seeing where your dog has been in his last walk. So if you just remember that doggy bags can be used for something other than leftover lunch. Some of you are fortunate to have grassy areas or areas where you can plant flowers and so forth. Please remember, if you are planning to do any seeding or mulching or putting down pine straw, please check with Nathan Summers first. Some brands will contain seeds of invasive, non-native plants that spring up first thing, probably healthiest of all, in the spring. And it's really expensive and time-consuming to get those all pulled out. And I had one other thing, if I can remember what it is. Do you ever go blank? Oh, I remember. Have you seen the beautiful new sidewalk at the east end of the building along D-Wing? It replaced the very uneven asphalt path and was completed yesterday, and it is beautiful. So if you haven't seen it and get a chance, walk over and admire the new path. Thank you.
I'm back again. This time, Judy Vick's report. As I mentioned earlier, she became chair of the Health Committee and chaired the first meeting last week. She writes as follows: "The purpose of the Health Committee is to provide liaison between residents and the TAFAD staff on health service issues and to provide pertinent health information to the residents. We are dedicated to improving and maintaining excellent health care at the Forest." In September, we met with CEO Anita Holt and Director Leanne Bailey Clayton for a discussion of the significant changes currently facing all CCRCs and healthcare providers, and how they, for us at the Forest, are approaching these challenges. Some of the steps taken were as follows: salaries increased to a living wage, shift differentials increased, the hiring process streamlined, and reestablishing relationships with Durham Tech and other local training programs that had been in place pre-COVID. This latter is particularly important because our certified nursing assistants, who are critical for providing patient care, are trained in these programs. The October meeting centered on the upcoming move to the small house facility on January the 9th next year, and specifically on how independent living residents can volunteer to help make this a less stressful experience for the 65 health and wellness residents who will be moved. The health and wellness staff is working with families when available, planning for the move. They are also working with our Health and Wellness Volunteer Committee for their involvement in the move. Co-chairs Chandra Ganguly and Carol McGuire are recruiting volunteers, partners who will be trained and then assigned to a resident in health and wellness. As a volunteer partner, you will meet with the resident, get to know them, and then be with them on the January day of the move. The intent is to provide company and comfort during the move, no heavy moving. We are encouraging all independent residents who might be able to take part as a volunteer to contact Chandra or Carol. We also hope that they will continue visiting their health and wellness resident after the move. Let's try to show them that they are still a valued part of our community, even if they're off in a new building.
Good afternoon. I'm Judith Ruderman, Chair of the Marketing Committee. The purpose of the Marketing Committee is to support the marketing staff by providing feedback and new ideas, and by engaging with the activities of that department in order to help recruit prospective residents to the forest. So here's my report. First, the occupancy report as of last Saturday. Of the 235 residents in independent living, 225 are occupied and 10 are reserved, 100%. 2 apartments are still offline to serve organizational needs, housing the Forest at Home office and the showroom for the Terrace apartments. On to the Early Acceptance Program, EAP. Though they do not live on campus, EAP members are considered residents of the Forest and are thus privy to the benefits of same. The cap for this program was expanded by 10 to 50 this month. We currently have 39 in the EAP cohort, with 3 in application and 8 in the process of being marketed. Requirements for being in the program are living no more than 20 miles from the forest, staying on the wait list, being in the age group 65 to 80, and paying the requisite fees. The names of EAP residents are found starting on page 80 of your 2022 Pocket Directory. Check them out. They might already be in some of your classes and other activities. On to charter membership and the Terrace Apartments reservations. Some who are in the EAP, others who are on the wait list, and still others who are in neither category have accepted the offer to become charter members of the 71 Terrace Apartments. Our gross total of charter members to date is 173, the first 95 of whom came from the wait list. Some attrition was expected and planned for, and we will continue to accept additional charter members into the program through construction. 13 charter members remain to receive an initial offer of a terrace residence. Apartments began to be offered to charter members last spring, and as of today, 67 of the 71 apartments have been reserved. That's great. 3 of the 4 remaining apartments meet Americans with Disability Act requirements, with 3-inch lower cabinets and other accommodations, some of which can be reconfigured if not needed. 85% of the depositors for our terrace apartments are from the Triangle or the Triad. A handful come from the rest of North Carolina or out of state. 72% of the depositors are couples. Finally, and importantly, those who have reserved terrace apartments are now called future foresters rather than terrace residents. The designation helps to convey the message that those in the new apartments are a part of the community and not set apart. Going forward, I reported last June that over the summer a subcommittee of the Marketing Committee was meeting to draw up suggestions for how our committee can help to alleviate some of the burden on the marketing department, given all the projects they are juggling with a small staff. Those plans are coming to fruition. We will soon have a cadre of resident ambassadors from the committee's membership who will be trained to give tours and information to prospects, thereby freeing up time and energy for the staff. In addition, the Marketing Committee has been engaged in considering ways to extend the welcome mat to new residents over their first year, expanding on already existing and wonderful forest programs. For more details on our discussions and the progress of these initiatives over the last months, you will find full sets of minutes in the appropriate binder in the Connections Room, as well as online on the Residents Association website. Thank you very much.
The Resident Services Committee is different from our other committees in that it doesn't really meet as a committee. It collects and collates reports from a number of subcommittees, where the subcommittees enhance our community life by volunteering time and energies. The reports, the groups it oversees include the Diversity and Inclusion Collaborative, the Encore Store. As you know, the store accepts household items which are no longer of use and sells them at very low prices to customers who are mainly employees and to some residents. The sales take place at the store on level 1, as well as vacated cottages and apartments, and all proceeds go to the Benevolent Fund. The committee continues to look for ways where employees can come to the store and take advantage of the bargains. Store hours and work schedules often conflict. The committee would welcome suggestions to resolve this conflict. The gift shop, volunteers love having people come in and shop, even though it's a small space. Traffic has been somewhat slow lately. Residents are encouraged to start shopping early with the holidays coming up. Health and wellness volunteers, as mentioned earlier, in coordination with Leanne Bailey Clayton, the committee is planning for the volunteers to serve as partners with the H&W residents as they move into the new house on January 9th. An extensive discussion was held during the Health Committee meeting. The library, the fall book sale will be held this Friday. You've seen the signs, from 1 to 3 o'clock. And there is a continuing need for volunteers to help with library activities. The new Resident Orientation Committee will be launching the fall 2022 season of Life at the Forest on Wednesday, October 26th at 10:30 in the party room. There will be 7 sessions, updates appearing in the Forest Forward. The publications we mentioned earlier, the pictorial directory will be delayed until we establish the addresses of those who are residing in the new health center. The resident flower donors. The committee needs more residents to provide flowers. High dollars are not required. Even nice house plants are fine, and sign-up sheets are in a 3-ring green binder in Connections. The Volunteer Friends Program has been suspended since the beginning of COVID and is not restarted. The website, we mentioned earlier, the board has approved a contract with a vendor to completely redo the website under the oversight of Lowell Goldsmith, webmaster. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Tom Small, Chair of the Governance Committee. Governance is responsible for overseeing the bylaws, reviewing duties and responsibilities of the officers and directors, and supervising elections. The board's been updating these duties and responsibilities, and so far we've reviewed, and the board has approved, revised duties and responsibilities for the Vice President, Secretary, Treasurer, Archivist, as well as dining services, general services, and the marketing committees. Recently, the committee was asked to review a few aspects of the bylaws, and they were last revised in June of 2021, and if anyone has any bylaws amendments to propose, now would be a great time to do it. Not right now, but if you could pass those along to me or a member of the Governance Committee, Jack Hughes, Ebby Steen, Bob Shaw, or Elodie Bentley. Now, one of my jobs as chair of the Governance Committee is to appoint, with the approval of the board, the chair of the Nominations and Elections Subcommittee. In July, I appointed Linda McBride, with the approval of the board, to that position. Now, Linda, as you know, has a lot of energy, so she got right on it and immediately went to work assembling a really impressive subcommittee that included Elodie Bentley, Linda Cushman, Joe Harris, Martin Kagan, Daniel Langmeyer, and Nancy McCumber. And then in August, our RA President, Carol Carson, asked residents to suggest to the subcommittee nominees for the positions of Secretary, Treasurer, and 3 Board of Directors. The subcommittee then selected the following nominees. For Secretary, Carol Cone Weaver. Carol, would you please stand? Thank you. For Treasurer, Ken Barrett. I'd ask Ken to stand, but apparently he's in Japan. He's probably asleep. And for 3 director positions, Jeff Collins. Jeff. Elizabeth Gillis. And Tom Small. On September 9th, the subcommittee sent all residents the names of these nominees together with their resumes. Residents were then invited to submit any other nominations. No nominations were received, and consequently there should be a motion to elect the subcommittee's slate of officers and directors. But before we do that, I just wanted to say that chairing the elections subcommittee is not an easy assignment, and the election process involves a lot of hard work, and Linda and her committee deserve a lot of credit, and they also deserve our thanks for taking on that difficult assignment and doing such an outstanding job. So thank you, Linda, and your committee. Okay, well, that concludes the Governance Committee report, and it would probably be in order then, Carol, to have a motion.
Thank you. We now move to the specific part of the agenda devoted to the election of officers and directors. You've heard Tom's report presenting the slate. May I have a motion to elect the slate as proposed by acclamation? I see a motion, a second. Thank you. Motion has been made and seconded that we elect the slate by acclamation. Shall we give them a hand? I, too, want to thank the nominations subcommittee. They worked hard. They did a lot of thinking to come up with the slate and a lot of editing to put together the various memos that are part of the process. So thank you, especially to their chair. And I'd also like to thank in advance the people who were elected. I appreciate their willingness to serve, and I look forward to the year ahead. But some other things are also in order. First of all, Bennett Galif, as you heard him say, has finished his term as director and chair of the Dining Services Committee. As his report mentioned, under his chairmanship, some big things and some little things changed, all to our benefit. I'd also like to thank Lois Oliver, who's completing her one-year term serving on the board as past president. I must say, I really appreciated her quick notes after a meeting, sometimes quite witty, sort of giving me the sense that someone is listening to what's going on. So thank you, Lois. So that brings us to other business. Is there any other business? If not, I say this meeting is adjourned, and thank you all for coming.